Imagine a world tens of thousands of years ago. A world without cities, without writing, without nations. Human beings lived in small groups, moving across the land, hunting, gathering, and struggling for survival. Life was hard, short, and uncertain. Yet even in that early world, long before temples, prophets, or organized religion, there was already something remarkable stirring in the human mind, the very first signs of spirituality. What does that mean? To understand it, we have to travel back deep into prehistory, to moments where our ancestors began to ask questions larger than themselves. Questions about life, death, and the unseen forces that seem to shape their world. The earliest evidence we have comes from burial sites dating back at least 100,000 years. In caves in modern-day Israel and Iraq, archaeologists have discovered Neanderthal graves. What makes them extraordinary is not just that bodies were placed carefully in the ground, but that they were buried with objects, tools, animal bones, and even flowers. This suggests that even our Neanderthal cousins, long before modern humans dominated the earth, may have believed in something beyond death. Perhaps they imagined a journey after life, or a spirit that needed comfort. Whatever the case, it reveals the first sparks of symbolic thinking, a willingness to see meaning where none is obvious. For Homo sapiens, our own species, the evidence becomes even clearer. Around 40,000 years ago, in Europe, humans painted vast murals on the walls of caves. In places like Chauvet and Lascaux in France, we see herds of bison, galloping horses, and strange half-human, half-animal figures. These weren't decorations. These were acts of ritual. Many scholars believe they were painted in deep, dark chambers to connect with a spiritual world. Imagine the flicker of torchlight, the sound of chanting or drumming, and the belief that these images held power, perhaps to call animals for the hunt, or to communicate with gods and spirits unseen. But spirituality wasn't only about animals or survival. It was also about the mystery of existence itself. One of the most striking examples comes from Göbekli Tepe, in modern-day Turkey. This site, built more than 11,000 years ago, is often called the world's first temple. Here, hunter-gatherers carved massive stone pillars with intricate animal shapes and placed them in circles. No one lived at Göbekli Tepe, it was a sacred gathering site. This tells us that before farming, before villages, people were already organizing themselves around spiritual practice. The desire to connect with something larger than life may have been the glue that held communities together. Across the world, similar patterns appear. In Australia, Aboriginal peoples created Dreamtime stories. Myths of creation and ancestral beings, passed down for tens of thousands of years. In Africa, rock art from the San people shows trance dances and shamanic rituals. In the Americas, ancient burial mounds and ceremonial sites reveal a belief in an unseen realm. Even without contact with one another, human beings everywhere developed spiritual imagination. It seems to be part of what makes us human. But why did this happen? Why would early humans, whose lives were already full of danger and hardship, spend precious time on ritual and belief? Some scientists argue it was evolutionary, that spirituality built stronger social bonds, helped communities survive, and gave people courage in the face of fear. Others suggest it came from the very structure of the human brain, which seeks patterns and meaning even in chaos. Still others see it as the beginning of philosophy, a way of asking the deepest questions about who we are and where we come from. The first signs of spirituality are not about one religion or one culture. They are about a universal human impulse. Long before Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, or Hinduism, people were already wondering about the same things we still wonder today: what happens after death? Why are we here? Is there something greater than us? And perhaps the most powerful evidence comes not from artifacts, but from imagination. Think of a group of people gathered around a fire 30,000 years ago. The night sky above them is filled with stars, brighter than most of us have ever seen. They tell stories about those stars, stories of hunters, animals, gods, and ancestors. The stories give comfort. They give identity. They make life feel connected to something infinite. That moment, that simple act of looking up and wondering, may be the true beginning of spirituality. When we look back at the first signs of spirituality, we're not just looking at ancient graves or cave paintings. We're looking at ourselves. Because those first sparks are still alive in us today. The same questions that haunted our ancestors haunt us still. We still search for meaning, still tell stories, still seek rituals that give life purpose. The forms may change, stone circles to cathedrals, chants to hymns, shamans to priests, but the impulse remains. The first signs of spirituality are, in a sense, the first signs of humanity itself. They mark the moment when we stopped being creatures merely surviving, and began being beings who could wonder, dream, and believe. And in that sense, spirituality is not only about gods or the afterlife. It is about the spark of consciousness that makes us human. So when we ask where spirituality began, the answer lies not only in history, but deep within the human heart. A heart that has always longed for connection with each other, with nature, with the cosmos, and perhaps, with something beyond all of it.